I am NetMoverSitan. There are a couple of loose ends to tie up before moving on to the middle row of the Star of the City, along with anything else that's yet to be covered. Next, we have part 2 of the thumb. And before we start the continuation of the story of this finger, I apologize for getting this wrong, as Denise is male. Yeah, I know, embarrassing, isn't it? We now head back to the southern base of the thumb. Boris had a tough call. There's a hot turf war with the index happening outside. The streets are gonna reek of blood. I don't doubt that. Boris noticed that it was the whole nest that was feeling the heat. Boris was asking what the Liu Association's beef was, as it was not just them. The Index and even Arcor are keeping them swung. Likely not just a rabbit team, as collateral damage isn't likely to be a problem there now. So reindeers and rhinos are likely to be deployed. There's also the problem with the distortion, which took out half of his soldados. Catriel understood that everyone looks for clues regarding the distortion. The library is at the center of the nest. That's closely related to the phenomenon. The nest of District 12 was where the distortion was happening more often. Then Carlo, the Sotocapo, walked into the room, and they respectfully greeted their superior. He told them to sit down, and he repeated that the Index, the Liu, and Arcor were ransacking that nest. Catriel added that the blue reverberation was getting involved. Well, we know he's interested in the library. It's just not ready for him yet. But the purple tear, now that's a new one. Who was this color fixer? Carlo was intrigued by the involvement of the blue sickle. Boris remembered that Tanya, the one that took the Nouveau fabric from the Kurokuma clan, was one of his muscle. So, maybe it's time to take out a hit on those deadbeats and ice them. Easier said than done, considering what Tanya was capable of. Carlo asked for their theories on what's attracting the blue reverberation in his outfit there. Catriel believed it to be the library, as several well-known individuals and groups fell victim to it too. Boris believed that whoever took over the library would be the victor of that turf war. Catriel revealed that if the invitation wasn't meant for them, as in they took it from someone that it was meant for, it vanished. As if to say, beat it, you deadbeat. They tried getting an invite through subordinates and from others by strong-arming, but that didn't work. On that day, Carlo received an invite, one that was meant for him. There was a book on the Liu Association up for grabs, just when they needed it, as they needed to deal with them, which would allow them to take half of the nest. It'd at least stifle. Then Jan, messenger of the index burst in, telling him that an underboss bringing all of his capos into the library doesn't strike him as a good idea. Jan, you have a death wish, as if the firm are brutal against their own if a subordinate speaks out of turn. What do you think they'll do to a rival finger? Probably more or less the same. Boris wanted to know what a messenger of the index was doing there. Dennis warned him that he'll pull out his tongue if he said anything stupid. Jan commented on how they're always on edge, that he's not there to see them bleed today, nor is he, according to Boris, there to throw cheap jabs at him. Jan then requested to speak with Sotokapo Kalo, who appreciated the index for upholding basic manners, and allowed him to do so. Jan's opinion was he didn't think that they should go into the library, as they're likely to turn into books there. Okay, Kalo, I'd listen to him, as that's what happened to the others, and not just some of his own. Some index proselytes went in the library. They didn't come back out again. Besides, if the underboss managing that area ended up disappearing, it could cause the command structure to destabilize, and it'd only be a matter of time before the index seized that area. Also, if the index were able to acquire his book in the library, it would make it harder for the thumb to break the index. In fact, the thumb would be over the... Carlo was surprised by this. Messengers don't usually state their own opinion. They usually deliver prescripts. He has patience for those, not the personal ramblings of a mere messenger. Carlo gave a message for Jan to deliver to the zealots of the index, remaining in L-Corp's territory. Once they're sorted out that matter, they'll pull out their teeth and tongues and feed them to the hounds as punishment for insulting the fun. Ooh, that's worse than you deal with your subordinates. Sadly, he won't be allowed to relay that message with his own mouth. This made Jan ready his sword. Denise then recited the punishment for irritating your superior. Take their tongue. It's cut off after that, so it's unclear what the outcome of that fight was. Angela observed that the thumb executes anyone that ruffles their feathers even slightly. Angela, you're putting it mildly. Roland confirmed this by saying that they don't care who the offender was. Angela saw this too, as not even a member of another finger is exempt from their rules. Yeah, I suspect a proxy is the equivalent of a sotokapo. Yeah, the thumb considers the echelon to be sacred. Roland went on to say that you have to be courteous to people whose position is higher than yours. As far as the thumb are concerned, you need permission for every little thing, so that no casually speaking their name No speaking before they do, no eye contact with one higher rank than you. Well, no direct eye contacts, to be more precise. Not even taking a without asking permission. A high-ranked person can lend their authority to someone else, but it's a rare case. He then went on to say that a grade 1 fixer is the equivalent of a capo in their hierarchy. Not sure about color fixers. Well, regardless, he sees both of the fingers as up in the head, just not in the same way. Angela liked the straightforwardness of it. Upon arrival, Calor asked if any received heavy injuries, as dead weight will just get in the way. Catriel told him that she's unharmed. Boris mentioned that it wasn't easy. Jan was a pain in the to deal with, never mind the rest of the Balsam Index. It seems that they were able to withstand him, but he didn't get taken down without a fight. Denis said that those who don't respect their superiors need to be taught a lesson of manners. Catriel was concerned about Gallo, asking if he's going to be alright, saying that the words of that messenger had a point. It might have been safer and beneficial for the thumb if he stayed in the base. Yeah, I'm thinking you chose your words carefully, Catriel. Gallo asked her if she should be more concerned about her own safety first. Yeah. You're there too in the library along with the others, a place where many enter, but few leave alive. And even then, it's to lure more into the library. Angela appeared and greeted them. Catriel found it interesting, as she's heard that the director of that place was a machine. But she didn't look like a machine, which Angela found irritating to hear. Yeah, the fact that they can't tell whether or not she's a machine, right in front of her face. Carlo then mentioned that a ruling figure of a star of the city outranks him. Ah, so she's the equivalent of a capo di capi. Uh-oh. Catriel disrespected her? So Carlo told her to pay due respect. Yeah. Due respect. Catriel saw this as impolite of her. She'd pay the price. She told Denise to carve her tongue, which he did. Now, this explains why the soldato that fought the librarians earlier didn't speak. Likely because they did something similar and couldn't afford a replacement. Gallo told her that Catriel might not be flawless, but he appreciated how quick she was to reflect on her mistakes. Well, that's one way of putting it. Asking her to forgive her rudeness. Angela then agreed with Roland about the thumb being sick in the head. Perhaps the index as well, and proceeded to usher them in. They were all killed, as Jan warned them they'd be. After that, Angela stated that she was annoyed by the thumb being bound to their strict decrees, even if it ended up killing them. Roland agreed and added that they shoved the thumb's rules up others' as well. all because they have the power to do so. Although they're harder to enforce with those that have the power to fight back, power that rivals their own. Angela asked who was making the rules for them. Roland didn't know. Yeah, it's a tough question that none that he knows has the answer for. He questions if even they know when those rules were established. It was likely sometime immediately after the Mechanical Rebellion, when the head found a way to take over. Well, regardless of how they were established, the FUM isn't much better than the zealots of the Index chasing the prescripts. He then asked Angela if they were done for following those unfair rules without even knowing why. She understood them, but she'd be lying if she said no. Although she did see them as pathetic. Due to their blind obedience at worst. I mean, even at best, where they question it, they still follow it. She saw it as pointless to question things that have stayed the same and had to stay the same. Why is that, you may ask? Because they're afraid it might get worse if it changed? Or is it because they would lose their power if things did change? Roland asked if it was a lesson learned from her previous job. She didn't and wouldn't paint it as nice as that. It was ingrained in her head. But lesson felt like an inappropriate way of describing that. It was an observation from what she's seen. She sees people who live aimless lives think that they have no other choice. In fact, Roland said that himself. She just understands that better than she used to. Just not the rules of the fingers. Those, well, the reasons for those still elude her. Although different individuals see it from different perspectives, judging for themselves whether it's good or bad. She sees Jan's warning as, well, not worthless. As Carlo chose to ignore it, and due to him being gone, the FUM is in danger within District 12's nest. Yeah. Roland understands that the FUM there are now. Certainly considering that their underboss is a book, which would be a severe hit on morale. Angela asked if that means that the only finger remaining in L-Corp's nest is the Index. Roland is unsure, as they'll either retreat or stand their ground. Not that he or any of the librarians, or even Angela, would need to give a about that. As for them, it's no big loss. Next we have the continuation of the Liu Association Section 2. Last time we checked, some of the no-name fixers went into the library and got themselves killed. The story with this guest group continues, with May informing Lowell that the case of The cases of the distortion are growing exponentially, centered around the nest of Elcor. Well, that's the place where it all started. It's enough for their affiliates to be reluctant to take the work to a point where they cancel contracts one-sidedly, which isn't something that any fixer office does lightly. Cecile then told him that not only is that as desirable to work on as engaging in cannibalism outside of District 23, those officers say, "This, we're not taking that job," if it involved a library. It's not looking good, is it? Although Lowell expected this. It's why the Liu Association is in charge. May then said that Section 1 sent a report about the distortion, which according to Lowell was why she was called there. How they were encouraged to take records of the distortion in order to gather data. Considering that the distortion is something problematic in an already up city, why wouldn't they? The records can only be shown to those that are in close proximity to a moonlight stone. Yeah, the moonlight stone being a product of M-Corp singularity, which, as stated before, helps stop people from going crazy. Well, they carry that into battle anyway. May then stated that it's no ordinary report if he's sharing it with her and Cecile. Something was bothering Lowell about the footage that came with it. The short version was Liu Association South Section 1 failed to capture the crying children, and it wasn't due to the team being wiped out. They missed it. Yeah. If Xiao wasn't able to capture what was once Philip, it's not the average urban nightmare. Oh, that is probably a star of the city now. They then watched the footage where it showed Xiao leading her team, telling them to stay sharp and to not back down, no matter what happened. Yeah, that's right. No surrender! No mercy! They were able to cause enough damage to send the crying children to the ground, so they decided to keep up the pressure. Then Argalia appeared, and feigned pity for what was once a Class 5 fixer. Seeing Section 1 of the Liu as out for his blood, he sees the pure and clean melody flowing within him and finds it sad that no one recognizes it. Well, it's because they have something that you lack, Argalia. And that is sanity. Xiao recognized him as the blue reverberation. He cheerfully greeted her. It had been some time since they'd met. Xiao responded with her sword, aggressively. Argalia commented on how her greeting is as sharp and bitter as he remembers. Oh, so you her off before? I honestly can't blame Xiao for that. For reacting in that way. As considering he wasn't much better before the pianist. Xiao doesn't know what he's up to this time, but she basically told him to off and get his pretty out of there. He refused by saying that he's there to take his pitiful friend, rejected by everyone, injured, abandoned, and about to be struck down by the likes of her. All he wanted to do was cry. Argalia, did you ignore that he also committed mass murder? Oh, wait, no, sorry, stupid question. Of course you don't. You didn't ignore it, you simply didn't care. It's clear that he's also the enemy to Xiao, who then more or less asked, "Cut the... How can you justify this?" Basically, a colour fixer should feel that anything is insufficient. She warned him that his elimination might be ordered one day if he keeps this up. Not even being a colour fixer would save him. So he's overreaching himself and abusing his power. In that city, what else is new? As for what Argalia thought about that, he didn't give a... He asked Zhao if she was satisfied with her current life. He didn't see the value of affluence. He had a corner in his heart that was always empty, which he tried to fill with useless things, which only made that corner bigger, which strangled him inside. Well, try figuring out what isn't useful for that then, and then find something that isn't useless. Which he was trying to do. Unfortunately, whatever he finds, I doubt will be to the benefit of the city. Well, he's found it, but the library isn't ready yet. That's when he'll be able to fill his happiness and make himself whole. Yes. Fill his heart with happiness, to be more precise. He knows that there's someone that fills hers, a person dear to her. She tells him to shut his mouth up. He saw it as a joke. She didn't. Either she was capable of holding her own, or he was holding back, as he was asking to put her weapon away, as he didn't want them to see each other's insides. She then asked one last question. What in the wing's name is he planning to do with a monster like that? Again, invoking the wings as if they're a key part of a religion. Argalia saw that as a funny question. He wanted to bring that pitiful thing from the streets, give it a home and adore it. Seeing that interesting specimen as one that could join him. Asking Oswald if he agrees. Hard to know who's more nutty. Oswald considers him too sour at that point, but by the time they're done, he'll have a dirty stench. Apparently sour is defined as an unstable distortion. Dirty is one that's more stable, like those affiliated with Argalia. He was about to do so, but Mr. Funnybones Pluto sent him elsewhere. This confused Chun. Argalia's bottom line is that they're taking him, which as a byproduct will stop that nest from being destroyed any more than it already has, indirectly doing Zhao a favour. That's not how she'd see it. She still intends to capture that distortion, and it gives her more reason to stop him. Argalia was then asking, why him? There are other creatures in this city. Well, that talk bored him, and then told Oswald to give them a show. So he summoned Mr. Knife and Miss Mermaid to assist him, to show them the skill that they've honed and whet. That place will be filled with thunderous cheers and wondrous applause. Miris wanted an order from Zhao. She was almost consumed by rage towards the blue reverberation, but focused on the more immediate threat of the 8 o'clock circus, while Argalia, Pluto, and what was left of Philip could talk somewhere private. Cecile saw how his appearance was serious. May asked why would a fixer of his grade do something like that? Lowell understands that he's a psycho. His thought patterns are beyond anyone's understanding. Only he knows for sure. While the 8 o'clock circus was beaten back, it was too late. The blue reverberation, yesterday's promise, and the crying children vanished. Section 1 was staying at a temporary base for a few more days to secure samples of other distortions, which was why, according to Cecile, they didn't come back by that morning. Not because they were slaughtered. Me wondered if Loa was worried a lot. Turns out that he wasn't, as he trusted Zhao. He then asked about their situation. According to May, Section 2 wasn't faring much better as they suffered several casualties, including a sizable number of associate officers. No wonder they turned down jobs regarding the distortion. After that much attrition. As if they continue, there. Lowell agreed, but they couldn't just sit there and take the losses. It turned out that every person who was subject to the distortion was under extreme physical stress. Now that would fit with Philip. Cecile asked about that. May then covered the parts where those that distorted were emotionally pressured to an extreme. Again, Philip within the library was pushed too far, but seemed to hold himself together. Unfortunately, he met Oswald and Pluto. Although the stress wasn't conclusive. Due to stress in life and holding it in anguish, that's business as usual in that city, as they're compelled to pretend that everything is fine. Lowell speculated that the distortion occurs when bottled up emotions exceed a certain threshold, such as when someone is pushed too far. Well, this can vary from person to person, as each person's mind and personality are different. May theorizes that the only way to stop the distortion is to reduce people's stress and heighten each person's threshold. Cecile believes that both of these are about as possible as the head allowing democratic elections within the city. Yeah, that's going to happen. And my apologies. I couldn't speak that without laughing at how ridiculous that sounds in this context. Well, regardless, there's not enough evidence to prove it. They need more to go on. Lowell then tells them that fixers are paid to fix the problems that they're hired to deal with. So he's using the invitation that he has. They both understood that as they signed up for the suicide mission. May asked how that one thing was going. Lowell assumed that it was the dumpling making contest. He hasn't told anyone but Zhao that. But that wasn't what May was talking about. She was referring to their first wedding anniversary that was going to happen next month. Oh, so they've been married for the better part of a year. Now that's dedication. Especially where they were living. Apparently he was planning to give her a nest migration permit as a present. Ooh. Those are about as expensive as they are hard to acquire. Lowell asked her where she heard about that. But mid-sentence figured out that it was Cecile, much to his annoyance. May teased him about how everyone in Section 2 was gossiping about how he spent his newlywed life with the Maiden of Iron. Lowell told her to save it for after they finished their work. He also wanted a chat with Cecile later. Yeah, I think we know she's in trouble. But he prioritized the library over dealing with her. After watching that, Angela was unsure of the Blue Reverberation's true goal. But she did get one thing loud and clear. And no, Roland, it's not that he's an absolute nutcase. That was made clear sooner. And Angela isn't in the mood for jokes. What was made loud and clear was that he was gathering distortions, specifically those that are capable of rational thought and action. Roland agrees that's what he seems to be doing. As for why he's doing that and what those bunch of freaks are going to do, he doesn't know. As for what I think they're going to do, I highly doubt it's for any reason that's good. Angela doesn't think so either. She then decided to focus on something other than asking questions that neither have the answer for, which Roland conceded as a good point. Angela then asked if it's common for fixers to start families. According to Roland, surprisingly, it is. They're often in life or death situations together, working face to face. They should be wearing ridiculous spandex outfits then. Most end with tragedy, as if they stay in the fixer business, it won't take long before one of them is killed. He can speak from personal experience. Angela believes that Lowell is about to meet his end there as well. Roland doesn't like how casual she's speaking about that. This attitude annoys Angela, so she says it in a condescending way that they made the choice to enter the library, even though they could just not go they went anyway. Roland, on the other hand, knew that urban nightmares and stars of the city, well, they're no longer a matter of choice, as they're considered so due to an invisible sense of compulsion. Angela doesn't believe this, as it doesn't change the fact that they're able to make choices, where if they have what they cherish, why risk their lives by going to a place with more danger than creating a bad design for a movie adaptation of a well-known video game character? She sees them as having the liberty of choice. Roland realized that Angela was right when she said that no one is truly free in that city. Choice and liberty, that which is cherished, desires clashed and intertwined. This created an invisible chain. Another layer of how the city enslaves those within it. The Liu Association going in there as ordered. All the guests ending up as books in the library. Roland leaving the house for urgent work. Free will, at least in these cases, is an illusion. An illusion of choice as their hands are forced by the shackles of the desires of others. This frustrated Angela as she asked him if she couldn't or shouldn't pursue her own freedom because she has to show consideration for them, because she's the machine, because she's unworthy. Roland didn't think it had anything to do with that. He told her that by trying to earn her freedom in the way that she's been doing, the karma will come back to haunt her one day. Now why would you tell her that then? Is it personal experience, or is it something else entirely? She then told him to stop the drivel and then said his own excuse to him at that point. This is this and that is that. Well, a variation of it anyway. May told them that they had arrived when they used the invitation and found themselves in the lobby of the library. Cecile saw it as more antiquated than expected. Lowell agreed. May asked if he would decorate his house in this style. Lowell mentioned that Zhao preferred something cute, then stopped himself and told May to stop asking about things like that and focus on work. Cecile took note of Zhao's taste. Then Angela appeared to greet them. Lowell told her that they were fixers of Section 2 of the Liu Association, Southern Branch. They were there to retrieve the books listed on the invitation. Straight to business, I see. Angela told them that they can take them if they can overcome the ordeals. Lowell asked if there was anything to say, as the situation was pressing and quick guidance would help. Angela then asked if the books were truly worth risking their lives over. Lowell didn't know what she meant. Angela asked if the books were worth them giving up the joys of everyday life. May was surprised by her being a machine curious about the life of humans. Lowell replied that it's what they must do to protect the joys of life, she mentioned. He considers that not many things were done out of one's volition. They can't just skip work if they don't feel like it. Angela asked if they were coerced into making that choice. Lowell ignored that question and asked if they could enter now. she ushered them in, and after fighting them, all those fixers of the Liu Association Section 2, Southern Branch, were killed, and the Maiden of Iron had just become a widow. Roland wasn't surprised by this end. Angela didn't understand that the things that people must do to secure the joys of ordinary life, the people's mindset when they do such work, the reason why his attitude suddenly changed, when previously he had no problems laughing off the deaths of other city folk. That was no different from them. The reason, well, that she can't understand it. It eludes her. But Roland can't see anything that can be done about the misfortune of others. Roland, you couldn't do anything about your own misfortune. He learned to lightly brush off the tragedies that he lacked the capacity to help with, or even the capability to help with. So he laughed things off. That was his sole method of staying sane in that city. It's a bitter laugh about the responsibility that he should take, to signify what an awful joke that is. Angela sees dwelling on the problem as the equivalent of strangling yourself. Yeah, Roland admitted that he got too emotional that time, that he never meant to say that she was unworthy of freedom. That's that, and this is this. Angela recognized that they both had many wounds, that she was too harsh as well. Roland agreed that fighting each other wouldn't do any good in the long run. They still had much to do. And not just preparing for the inevitable battle against Lowell's widow. There are other things as well. Next will involve similar themes, but from different perspectives. And if you think it's going to get more pleasant, you clearly haven't been following along. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!